live. So today what we're going to be talking about is breaking the silence to awaken pleasure. And what we mean by that is speaking up for yourself in the bedroom when something doesn't feel good or when you desire something. And that doesn't mean that you're, criticizing your man and telling him everything you're doing wrong, but you're expressing yourself in a way that is loving, clear, and sexy. And, men are going to enjoy lovemaking a lot more when you're also enjoying it. So men, feel free to stay on here. There'll definitely be some nuggets of wisdom for you guys. And ladies, of course, for anyone who is struggling to speak up for themselves in the bedroom, this is definitely going to be very helpful for you. So Mum, if you maybe want to start by telling us why you think so many women are afraid to express themselves and hold back from doing so in the bedroom.
Thanks, Adele. Yeah, it's from what I've heard in my experience with friends and with clients, there tends to be this fear that it's going to ruin the moment, or the man's going to feel criticized and shut down. They're going to feel emasculated as men, or that, there's this fear of losing love, that if we're not just tolerating whatever we don't like and we're actually speaking up, that the man is going to feel either like a failure and very defensive, or get upset with us, and we're going to lose love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how do you think women can start shifting these fears to then speak up for themselves?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different factors at play, but I think the first one is that any ladies listening, you have to feel worthy of being made love to, being connected to in a way that feels good for you. And surprisingly, a lot of women have a strong self-worth wound where they're wired more towards pleasing and trying to get love and performing than they are of actually receiving the love in the way that they need it. And often that's not even conscious, it's unconscious. They're just unconsciously striving to get more love, but then becoming resentful when they're tolerating. So the first step is to know that you're worthy of being touched, loved, connected to in the way that feels good for you. Mm-hmm. And then it's really about unfreezing the voice that may have shut down and starting to speak up more and notice more. So, you have to really have the capacity to be really attuned to yourself and present with yourself, and not just disappear and, think or fantasize while you're making love, or just put all the focus on the pelvis and go for the genital orgasm. It requires a breathing and a feeling of all of our being, and staying very connected to the nuances of energy and sensation that are in the body, so that we actually know to say, hey, can you just slow down for a moment? Can you pause for a moment? Or, move their hand to touch somewhere else. One of the biggest issues that women complain about is that men are too fast, and they go straight for over the very sensitive areas like the yoni and the nipples before our body's actually warmed up. And, a lot of men, they just don't know how a woman's body is wired, because they're wired to just get turned on very quickly. They're assuming that we're wired in the same way. And even when we tell them, sometimes it's hard to remember. So it's also about being patient and understanding that there's a huge difference between men and women. For women, our heart needs to be open before our sexuality is fully open, whereas for men, it's the other way. So that creates a little bit of an issue sometimes. It's like all a man needs to do is make love often for his heart to open again, but if he hasn't connected with us, our sexuality is not open. So it creates this problematic loop where they're wanting to make love, but we need to feel safer, we need our hearts to be more open, but they're not open until they make love, so we're not feeling their openness, and so then we don't open sexually, and yeah, it can be a real nightmare.
Yeah. And just to circle back to what you said about feeling worthy, you said, recognizing that you are worthy, and it's definitely, just thinking that and realizing that, but also is there a practice they can do, that is embodying that as opposed to just, recognizing and saying, I am worthy? Is there something that they can pair that with to really root it in themselves?
Well, for starters, when you look in the mirror, rather than looking at all the flaws, look into your eyes and really see the beauty that is beyond physical appearance. Because a lot of women that I've worked with, their self-worth really suffers with all of the critical self-talk about their body, about their beauty. So a good way to start is to make some peace with that and actually look into your eyes and your soul when you look in the mirror and feel the beauty that is within. I know it sounds really cliche, but it's going to be very hard to feel beauty and worthy of being loved when, as soon as you look in the mirror, you're looking for all of your flaws. And then it's like it's different for everyone depending on conditioning, but it's also about opening up your receptive channels. Like, you're not going to feel worthy of an amazing life and amazing lovemaking if you're not actually receiving the love and beauty and wonder that the world has to offer you. So it's really about switching the allegiance from the mind and always being engaged in the mind to being more embodied and actually giving yourself the things that's going to fill your cup. Because if you're not receiving what you need outside of the bedroom from yourself, it's going to be easier to just tolerate because you're used to not actually receiving what you need. So, taking a long, hard look at what brings you joy and what you do need in life and moving towards that is a really good start.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, I've like probably most people have had the whole, can you please slow down? I need a bit more softness. And then a couple months ago, I kind of had this realization when I was doing a process that every time I would touch myself, which was also not very often at all, I would most often just go pretty quickly for the stimulation. And I realized, how am I going to expect him to do that for me when I'm not doing it for myself? And when I did start to, make self pleasure more of a ritual and take the time to really just touch myself and not even go anywhere near the yoni, that then actually just naturally flowed into, I don't know if it was, my energy being there, I was just embodying it more, but he naturally then was softer and slower.
Yeah, I love that. And, self pleasure is a way for us to start to allow our nervous system capacity to expand into receiving more pleasure that is aligned with what we're really wanting. So when you self pleasure, really paying attention to all the areas in the body, like touching the hair, touching the face, touching the neck, down the sides of the body, teasing the body. Women love to be teased. Their
Yeah.
inner thighs, their womb space. So there's erogenous zones all over our body and thousands of nerve endings that lead from the clitoris. And we really want to have all of those stimulated and teach men about this. So, there's the communication that happens in the bedroom where you're staying attuned to yourself. And as soon as something doesn't feel good, you challenge yourself to speak up. If it's going too fast, you say, hey, can we slow down? If you're wanting to be teased more and you're wanting it to be slower and sensual, and you can be stroking his back, stroking his arms, looking into his eyes and say, can you just keep touching the rest of my body for a while longer before you touch my yoni? Or yeah, if sometimes the style of the touch is what's not feeling good. So it's like, can you touch me with a bit more of a light touch? And it can get tricky. You don't want to be controlling lovemaking, but what you do want to do is like, as you said, men feel so much pleasure. When we feel pleasure, we want to let them know what brings us pleasure. So there's the communication that's happening in the bedroom, and then out of the bedroom, if there's opportunities to speak about different desires that you have, to share how a woman's body is wired differently. So there's these really opportune moments that women can have to share like what it is that they desire. And often, instead of taking those opportune moments, we wait until we get to the point where we've tolerated so much that we either don't want sex anymore. It's like compound interest. It's like compound complaint, compound dissatisfaction. And then that's really hard. And that's the classic, oh, I've got a headache or I'm too tired, because we're no longer inspired to make love if the lovemaking isn't happening in a way that, is really exciting us and feeling like this heart-opening orgasmic experience where we feel so much more connected to our partner. And that's really what you want. Sexual energy is such a beautiful, miraculous act of creation where two bodies are merging. So we want to find ways to make that as beautiful and self-respecting as possible. This is your body, this is your temple.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what you said about expressing what you do like is so important. And, we've had it come up a few times, the conversation of like, it feels like you're controlling and you're not wanting to surrender to the experience, and it's all just everything I'm doing wrong. And, really like not necessarily overdoing it, but when something feels good, really just like expressing that, moving your body, and that not only shows him what feels good, but it actually also, I think, brings you more into the experience and brings you into more presence with what's happening. And then it's like, oh, that actually does feel so great when you really just feel into it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's like the more responsive you can be to a man, because he's not going to be inspired if we're just lying there and he can't even tell if we are feeling good. So being very responsive and giving lots of affirmation to him about what feels good is so important. And it's also where the communication is coming from, because a man's going to feel controlled if you're speaking to him from your mind. But if you're breathing deeply into your body and he can feel it coming from your body. So for instance, I could be interacting sexually with a man and say to him, hey, I don't like it when you go straight for my yoni. Can you please like touch my head first, then my face, then my neck, come down the sides of my body, tease me a bit, that's going to feel much better. Then straight away, it's like he's been given an instruction, and part of the energy together isn't going to be felt as strongly. So it's good if you can show him what you like by doing it to yourself and, with your own hands. It's good to just place his hands on your body and just short, simple requests that don't tell him what he's doing wrong. So as soon as you say, I don't like it when you do this, or you're going too fast again, I've told you so many times, whatever it is, as soon as you direct the communication to what he's doing wrong or the past, and you're not just here now, enjoying the connection, loving on him and asking in a sensual, open way, then it can get a little bit tricky. And of course it is tricky. It's tricky territory that you're navigating here. And that's why I think a combination of speaking up in the bedroom and then also finding the right timing outside of the bedroom when you can communicate again just what you do want, not what you don't want, and just sharing very lovingly, hey, what I really love is this.
Yeah, and I think it's a there's a very, like, there's a beautiful balance, and it's easy to break that and get out of the moment, and that stops a lot of people from speaking up. And what you said before about, you know, doing it, you're bringing that energy yourself, and actually not just relying on him to make it slow and soft, but actually embodying that yourself. And, you know, if you want to be caressed, start caressing him instead of just being like, oh, can you caress my face straight away? And then often that will just inspire him to start doing that. And yeah, really, I found it makes such a huge difference when I just, and it's harder because you're being vulnerable, but dropping into your vulnerability and just being like, hey, baby, like, can you do this or that? Instead of being like, oh, like, no, that's bad, you know? And it's, yeah, so much more well received when it's like, I really do like this, instead of being like, I don't like that. And keeping, you can, instead of, you know, instantly putting the energy on like he's done something wrong, keeping that like sexy loving energy and just expressing it in that way instead of like closing off a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, there are certain tantric practices that really support a style of lovemaking that is more feminine, that keep us connected to our hearts. And, you know, macrocosmic orbit, where you're circulating energy, you're actually breathing the man in, you're breathing your heart energy back to him, eye gazing, slow sensual touch with different elements, and actually just being really, really present in each moment. And, you know, women and men, just like everything in life, can sometimes take an overly masculine approach. And what I mean by that is an outcome oriented approach where the focus is on the orgasm and on ejaculation, where, you know, women are going to much prefer just feeling loving presence without the agenda, without the pressure to orgasm, without the pressure to perform in any way, actually. So, but women have to also get out of that mode of just chasing the orgasm. So, really, what we're attuning to is a more energetic and sensual way of making love. And what actually happens is we become so much more orgasmic. Like when we have about 20 minutes for our body to warm up, and there's lots of different styles of touch, and we're feeling connected at the heart, and energy is moving, the body's being teased, then as soon as we are entered, the feeling is so much more expanded because there has been that build up. So the best chance you have for ultimate feminine arousal is a slow, sensual, connected build up where you're feeling the loving presence of the man that you're with without the agenda to get anywhere, to just be in that moment. And it's hard because, you know, pornography wires us to chase the goal. And a lot of people are learning about sex through pornography, or religion teaches us just not to enjoy it at all. And so we end up rushing through it with guilt and shame. And just the world in general and the collective consciousness is so wired towards achievement that as soon as we're all getting in the bedroom, we're just really going for it and trying to get that release. So, you know, there's a lot of different aspects to this, but, you know, the main key to being able to break the silence and express desires to awaken feminine arousal is actually really getting to know yourself, healing your self-worth wound, and knowing that you're worthy of having your needs met. And that includes outside of the bedroom, because if our needs aren't being met out of the bedroom, and there's a lot of dysfunction when we get in the bedroom, we're either going to use sex as the only way to feel loved, and then there's going to be a desperation for it, or we're not going to feel safe to open up. And it's like that what's happening out of the bedroom will trickle in. So it's also really important to ask for what you need out of the bedroom, to cultivate romance, and the pause and the slowing down that we need in the bedroom, we actually need outside of the bedroom too. You know, have some romantic quality time together that's very present, and space. You know, it's like women love mystery, and our eroticism is wired to get to an ultimate space of turn on when there is that mystery and when there is some longing. So again, it's like a catch-22, because we love security and we love to know that our man is fully committed and with us, and that's beautiful. And then that also has to be balanced with a level of independence, that there's a curiosity about the other person. There's enough space to create some, like, I miss you. It's really interesting because I've always had a lot of space in my relationships and chemistry's always been really high. But Matisse and I, we don't have that much physical space, but we have so much emotional, energetic space. So even though we're living together, he is very contained and has his own rich life, and so do I. So you don't always need to have a lot of physical space for the chemistry and the fire to stay alive, but definitely at a bare minimum, and sometimes physical for sure, having that emotional, energetic space. So you're wanting to move towards each other. You're not just friends or teammates living under the same roof doing life together. You're actually aware that it's good to build some mystery. It's good to keep the fire burning hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love all of what you said. And absolutely, throughout the day, if we have a day where, we're both too busy to take a minute when we see each other to just like pause and kiss each other with, presence, and actually really being in that moment together. And then when it gets to the bedroom, it takes a lot longer for me to open and soften completely. Whereas, throughout the day, if we're seeing each other and we're, prioritizing that 2-minute pause, which is so easy to do, to just have a moment with each other and create that softness and safety before going into the bedroom, then it's, yeah, obviously a lot quicker to go when you are in the bedroom. And as well, when you were saying about creating emotional space, what are some ways that, first of all, maybe what do you mean by that for people that don't really understand, and what are some ways that you can do that?
Well, actually, when you're feeling a lot, to sit with that and be there for yourself and check it out and see what you need, instead of trying to resolve everything with him straight away, or even just, with what's going on in your life, having a strong group of sisters for him, having a group of brothers. It's kind of like, you know, we're filling our own cups in whatever way we need, so that by the time we're together, we're overflowing into each other. We're not expecting our partner to be everything, to be our entertainment, our best friend, our brother, our sister, our lover, the father of our children. Often there's this expectation that the person we're with has to fulfill all of our needs, but that's not healthy, and it's also not good for chemistry. So, it's part of breaking the silence isn't about speaking more about everything we're feeling. It's more about really being with ourselves, creating that emotional space, so that when we are together, we're able to communicate calmly and from a full place what it is that we're needing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is very different. It's sourced from the body. It's sourced from inner union, rather than we're just going through the motions of spending all of our time with our partner. Everything that comes up, we're talking to them about it. Unless we have this internal capacity to check out what's happening, we're not actually going to be able to ask for what we truly need and desire.
Yeah, and it comes along with, when you're not doing that, comes along with a lot more expectation, like you said. And then when you don't get a yes, it's a lot more intense to deal with, because you're relying on just them for, whatever you're wanting, instead of being it already existing within you.
Yeah, and it's also this everything. It's so tricky, because it's this balancing act. It's also what you said of needing, the kiss and the touch and the dropping in and pausing during the day, and the space. So it's a framework of interdependence rather than codependence or independence. It's like, we have our own. We feel safe within our own skin, and happy. And also we're okay with our partners being part of that and expanding that and supporting us through challenges and making the joys even greater. We're not depending on them solely for that.
Mm-hmm.
We're self-sourcing that, but then we're also saying, hey, but we're here for each other. And there is this like independence and dependence that come together where we're not swinging the pendulum either way. We're just taking this nice middle path where we're celebrating and loving life together, able to work through challenges together, able to expand into beautiful moments together,
Mm-hmm.
but not enmeshed, not so entangled that it's like I wouldn't have a life without this person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, you know, when you do speak up, it's 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 naturally going to be a lot sexier and more sensual and connected because you're more connected in here.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, and I wanted to say something earlier and then I forgot actually, but what you were saying about, getting to know your desires by first getting to know yourself without your partner. Actually, for me, what was so helpful was in my daily practice to make self pleasure a part of that every single day, and really, like you said, touching your face and your arms, and it doesn't have to be a whole long thing, but just taking even 5 minutes to just really connect with yourself and learn what makes you feel good and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, expecting anyone to know what we need and desire, if we don't, first of all, know that ourselves, and second of all, give that to ourselves, is pretty insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we're not actually, our nervous system isn't even going to have capacity to receive that because we're not used to it. We just keep perpetuating whatever we're used to. And this is where it ties back in with the self worth. If
Mm-hmm.
we are living life in a way that reflects that we are worthy of pleasure, then that's going to invite more pleasure. But we have to actually be tuning into that. And so a daily practice where you're dropping in, maybe putting on some nice music. This is something that I love to do. And, you know, just following the natural impulses of my body according to the lightness and the tension in my body. So where I feel light, you know, like moving into that, feeling that, letting it feel good. Where I feel tight, maybe that needs a bit of a stretch and some sound. And then actually intentionally focusing on pleasure and what's going to bring me pleasure in this moment. And then by the end of my practice, like, what's going to bring me pleasure and joy today? How can I follow that? And I feel like the more pleasure you feel in your life, the closer you are to your soul essence. And a lot of where I used to be in my habitual patterning was to work really hard and to focus on work so that, you know, abundance would come in, so that I could serve people as much as possible. And it's pretty incredible that since I've been navigating more into the trajectory of following my own heart, following my own pleasure, speaking up about my needs, trusting that, then there's more abundance and more clients and more love coming in than ever. So,
Mm.
you know, we're kind of taught to extend our energy out and try to get something. But as women, if we can lean back, surrender, and open to receiving, that's where the gold is. We've got to train that muscle of receiving what we need, because whatever you're used to, that's your comfort zone, and it's going to be really hard to get out. So if your comfort zone is living your life in a way where you're not actually, where you're depleted, or where you're not actually getting what you need, how we do anything is how we do everything. That's going to be reflected in the bedroom. So the most important thing is to get used to a life where you're actually receiving what you need, receiving the pleasure that you deserve, and trusting that pleasure, you being in your pleasure and joy, will lead you to where you need to go. That's
Mm.
that's really different, right? We're so trained to just be in the doing and in the mind and in the shoulds. So part of being fulfilled as women and breaking the silence is replacing this allegiance, this strong allegiance that we have with the mind that will control his actions, into an allegiance with the body, which is really once we have that, we're just sharing what's true. We're just sharing what's alive. We're not making anyone wrong. We're just like, oh, I actually really love to feel your energy in your heart. Or, you know, if the man's getting really focused on giving us an orgasm and we can feel that disconnection, just grabbing him and pulling him up to your face and kissing him, and as you were saying, like, you connecting energetically is going to inspire him to connect energetically.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And having that deeper surrender, you know, not only in the bedroom, but in all of life, absolutely. It flows through into everything. And I experienced the same. You know, I was working with horses and it was all very go, go, go. And I thought I had to do this and this and this to get to here. And then I eventually was like, no more. And I just surrendered and it all just unfolded perfectly exactly as it needed to. You know, I never didn't have money, everything just sorted itself out perfectly. And that surrender then also goes in the bedroom and not, you know, like you said, controlling and trying to get to that place of orgasm, just surrendering to the present moment and trusting the unfolding of it all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel to add as well something that I experienced when I was doing my daily practice and I would start to, you know, slowly touch myself. Sometimes sadness and anger would come up during that. And, you know, I was kind of feeling the times that my body had been, my boundaries had been crossed, and not necessarily because it was the man's fault, but because I often didn't speak up. And, you know, I've only been in a relationship for 2 years, and in the beginning I was very shy and it took me a while to find my voice and speak up, and so there were times when things didn't feel good and I just tolerated it. And it was actually really beautiful in my daily practice to just feel that and then release it. And so it's not, I felt like I wasn't then holding that in our lovemaking, because sometimes I feel it would unconsciously be in there and there would be like a distrust that was not really based on anything current. It was based on those past experiences.
Yeah, so releasing any like feelings in your body from tolerating, so that you're not taking that into the future interactions.
Yeah, yeah, and just letting it all, you know, all of it is okay. And you don't need to know the reason why it's coming up. You know, if you're touching yourself and it's coming up, you don't need to be thinking, why is this happening? Just feel it and release it, and it'll do, you know, the work will do what it needs to do. It doesn't need to be up here, and you don't need to know what is really happening.
Yeah, and same within the bedroom. Like if something doesn't feel good, it doesn't have to make sense. And a lot of women think there's something wrong with them when they want it to be slower or when they want it different. There's nothing wrong with you. It's like trusting your body. And, you know, a lot of the phrases, if you go onto my Tantra for Couples Instagram, there's a post that I did of like phrases that help, because women like to have the phrases in front of them. But things like, can we please pause? Can we please slow down? Could you please touch me like this? And like, you know, actually say how you like to be touched, or, you know, shifting what the idea that anyone else's yes is more important than our no. Because sometimes we're subtly and not so subtly taught that when other people want something, that's more important, right? So really contemplating that, you know, do you make other people's yes more important than you know? Are you more concerned with pleasing someone else than actually receiving what you need? So starting to ask yourself those important questions.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that, you know, would probably find that if that's happening in the bedroom, it would be happening in the rest of your life as well. And so looking at not just the bedroom, but the rest of it, and recognizing that they, you know, are intertwined.
Yeah, absolutely. So are there any
Okay.
questions?
Yes, I have some questions. So someone has asked how to gently redirect in the moment when a kind of touch doesn't suit us during lovemaking.
Yeah, so you can either like just grab his hand and move it to where it does feel good. That could work. Another way is to actually, like look him in the eyes again, like bring some touch to his body. I prefer a lighter touch or a firmer touch or more of a massage like touch. So getting clear in yourself what it is that you desire before you say it. Because a lot of women, from my experience of speaking to clients, when I say, "Oh, what did you communicate?" they'll say, all they've communicated is, "I don't like it when you do that." And then that just leaves the man like, "Well, what the fuck do I do?"
Yeah, yeah.
So, the pace of the touch, the style of the touch, and where the touch is, being able to voice that lovingly through your words or through your hands. So you can also say, "I love touch that's like this," or "I love touch that's like this," and show him on his body. And it's also like sometimes a man is going to feel a bit upset if he feels like he hasn't been fulfilling you, especially if you haven't said anything. And then you do after this live, and he says to you, "How long have you not been liking that?" And you say, "Oh, like since we got together," or, he's going to be upset that you've been tolerating that. A, because he loves you, but B, because that means he's been a failure all those times. So if he does get upset or feel overwhelmed or sad, that's okay. Let him feel that. And that's relative to how much you have been presenting a different version of yourself is often going to be how upset he is, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
if you've been faking orgasms and then and then you admit that and you tell him what you really like, that's going to be hard for him. So that's okay. Like, part of being in a relationship where both people feel the freedom to be honest is that we can be with what's arising in them and what's arising in us, and we don't expect our partner to be, you know to have such thick skin that they can just take anything and never have any feelings about that themselves. So allowing whatever feelings to arise that are genuine and authentic in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, and it is hard, not often it is the man who's receiving it because women, I feel, often have more requests, but when I have received it, like it is a bit like, oh, like that's kind of shit, and it's not his fault, it's not my fault, it's just like feeling that, and that's okay, and you don't need to be attached to it being this, oh, okay, great, great, no worries. Like it goes a bit deeper than that sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So someone else has asked what to say to a newish partner during erotic time. He's not very vocal during those moments/hours.
So I would love to hear you make some sound. That really turns me on. Right? Just being open. Obviously, your own sound will also encourage him. But, the alternative is, "Oh, you never make sound. Why not?" Or, like, "I think it would be good if you made sound." And I have heard women actually say that they've given that feedback. And then I'll say to them, "What would it feel like to just say, it would turn me on so much to hear how turned on you are at the moment. You're still engaging," and just giving that permission. And also, you could discover that you're incompatible sexually with someone once you start making requests. Like, I'm sensual energetic, and I'm not well suited to someone who's like really sexual and kinky. Not because there's anything wrong with that, but because it's not compatible with sensual energetic. So checking out your erotic blueprint can be helpful. You can go online. I don't know, I did it so long ago, but I'm sure that, yeah, you'll find something like discovering your erotic blueprint, and you ask questions and it tells you what that blueprint is, and then you can dive deeper into it. That can be really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And also, I want to add playing music during lovemaking and specifically music that's not necessarily, it's like slower and it's sacred music, I find is such a really easeful and beautiful way of bringing that energy in. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can, we can actually link, I have a couple different playlists you can play, and
I'll
one is,
definitely put them on the chat for people. So
yeah, I'll do a little comment and they can get the links. And one is really slow and sensual, and I like to queue up some of those songs, and then it'll move into more like animalistic, and depending on what you like, you can really, and then that leads the experience instead of and it's there's no voicing, it just kind of naturally happens. When the music is slow, you both naturally move into that state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and also as well, massage is one of my favorite ways to, before lovemaking. You're just touching each other's whole bodies. It's no agenda. It's not leading anywhere. You're just touching each other's bodies, being present and giving each other love is a beautiful way to, start before lovemaking.
The no agenda thing is massive.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you feel like your partner's massaging you just to get you wet, or to get you turned on for sex, you can have a different experience than if you can just receive and see where the energy leads.
Mm-hmm.
So, loving presence without any agenda as to the result goes such a long way. And that's something that I think it's good to share with men, because they are so invested in giving us our orgasm. And it's like, what I really love is to be touched with curiosity and touched in a way that they're enjoying touching my body, not just being touched to get my body into, over here when it's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah. And it's so like, when you're attuned to each other, it's so easy to tell when they move into that state of, they're just trying to get you there. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they don't even notice. It just naturally happens. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like you said, bringing them back into the moment. And I love it, for men, when you're touching a woman, fingering or going down on her, like speaking to her still during the process and stopping and touching the rest of her body instead of just staying there, and
Mm-hmm.
moving between like soft and fast, and seeing how her body reacts instead of just you start off a little bit slow and then you go faster, faster until you get to the explosive orgasm.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, praise is we love praise. We
Mm-hmm.
love to have our beauty reflected back to us. So, your body's so sexy, you're so beautiful, I love you. And yeah, that can be hard to break the silence and say, hey, I would love to hear words of praise when we're making love, and you can ask for that in the bedroom, and see how that goes.
Mm.
And just know it's not meant to be easy to speak up,
Mm.
from that more vulnerable place. It is difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that women have suppressed our voice for a long time. Of course, we're much more liberated, and if you even look over history, there is a history of women putting up with suppressing our voice, not
Mm.
saying what we really want, you know, lying there and wishing that something different was happening and not speaking up about that. So it's not meant to be easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and pushing yourself. If you want a different result, you need to try something different, and that is often outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah. So breathe through it, feel it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there any other questions, Adele?
I don't think so. So, yeah, if you don't have any other tips that you want to add, we can probably leave it there.
Yeah, I think it's really, it can be very unveiling once you start speaking up. As you said, Sadal, it like brought up other stuff and other times when you had tolerated. So yeah, be gentle with yourself in the process. Check out some of the posts I've been doing lately about breaking the silence, that will be really helpful. And yeah, let yourself go deep. Let yourself go deep into the mystery of what's here when you actually tune into what you really need and desire and start expressing that. It's quite life-changing. I've seen many women's lives change from starting to speak up, including my own. So, and yours, Sadell. I
Yeah.
remember when you were really going through that process. Did you have anything else to share, darling, around speaking up?
No, I think what you said about just not expecting it to be super easeful the whole time. And, there were moments where we were like, fuck, are we incompatible sexually? And like, we're absolutely not. We, have brilliant sex, but it was bringing up a lot. And so it's just, yeah, being with everything that's going on and being compassionate, both people being compassionate because it's hard on both ends.
Exactly. It's like, a woman's abandonment wound can get easily triggered when we're we let it get to the point of tolerating, and our bodies, our hearts can feel abandoned. And then, if we wait till then we speak up and we're angry or we're really sad and upset, we've shut down, then their failure wound comes up. Or even if we're not feeling abandoned and we're communicating in the perfect way, if there is such a thing, their failure wound can still come up. Even if they're really being attentive, there can be a moment where they lose presence or they go too fast and our trust breaks and we feel abandoned. So, we're dealing with a very sensitive area of the human experience. Eros definitely opens the unconscious. So, and you may want some extra support around this. So Sacred Sexuality 8-week online course is really supportive of everything I'm talking about. And our free journey, Tantra 101, speaks into boundaries, expressing what we need. So yeah, also we've got like lots of free resources and paid resources to start to dip your toes in more, or even like dive deeper and go swimming onto another shore of existence where you're not tolerating anymore. You're able to feel what you're feeling, express what you're needing, make your no more important than somebody else's yes, and basically open the portal to a new life where you can be fully yourself. And that your self-worth isn't earned by giving people what they want, or earned by performing or having a mask. It's actually something that is fundamental to you. You're worthy because you exist. You're worthy of being loved the way that you need to, just by virtue of being here and being alive. So yeah. Know that.
Yeah, beautiful. And really, like, after you've watched this live, watching one live and then saying, okay, I'm going to speak up, I'm going to feel worthy, I'm going to da da da, is all well and good, but you need to actually then put that into practice. And like Mum said, the courses are brilliant, and taking the time every day in your daily practice to connect with yourself and doing the mirror work, like she said, like that is what's going to make the difference. This live is great and it's going to maybe start the journey, but the difference is what happens after this live.
Yeah, and I would even invite people to do one thing after this live, either straight away or tonight, where you do tune into what you desire and maybe write it all down, do some journaling. Or if you have a partner, as soon as something doesn't feel right, the next time you make love, or connect with him tonight, just say pause or speak up and say slow down, or actually I really love to be touched like this. Just just simple steps can be really, really helpful. So do one thing today or tonight to support what we've been talking about, even self-pleasuring and feeling what does feel good.
Yeah, great. All right, everyone, thank you for watching. I'll put a word or something in the caption and you can get the playlists, and we'll send you a link to the free offering as well. And yeah, we'll see you next week. I'll be going live.
And maybe give a 50% off code for Sacred Sexuality for people who are wanting to go deeper. So check out this 8-week course. It's really supportive of feminine arousal. So check it out.
All right. Thank you all. I'll see you next week.
Bye, Sadell. Love you, darling.
Bye.